as I was getting myself set up to do a little bit of shooting today, and I wanted to play with the firearm from CZ, CZ100, that I haven't played with in many years. I guess I'm reminding myself why I don't shoot it very often. I'm moving stuff around here so I can find a comfortable place just to sit down, relax, and enjoy a beautiful afternoon. Although a little bit windy, I'm still enjoying a great afternoon of shooting. I'm looking around and I see here another piece of petrified wood. Now, I think you saw in the earlier video, I was getting set up and I found a couple of pieces of petrified. Now, I just think it's kind of cool. So I'm going to add this piece of petrified wood to the collection I got going over there on the other log. So I get myself kind of comfortable and I'm sitting here. I've got my targets set up off to my left and I'm looking around. Got a little wood pile here of some dead stuff that's been sitting there for quite some time. And I pull this little guy off of the pile and I'm looking at this because it reminds me of petrified wood. And it reminded me of a video that I had recently watched on YouTube. It was about Devil's Tower. Now, you've seen Devil's Tower. You know what that looks like. And the fellow who was narrating the video had mentioned that it's called Devil's Tower out of something of a mistranslation. But he'd also mentioned in the video that people who lived in that area hundreds of years ago didn't call it Devil's Tower. What they called it was the rock tree. And if you've never looked at rotting wood, it's real obvious why somebody would call Devil's Tower the rock tree. It looks like a tree that was cut down. It's a tree stump and it's rotting, because that's exactly what, if you haven't seen this, if you live inside a concrete jungle, what that looks like. So you've got the growth rings on the top there. So as it kind of falls apart, you get these little sections that break off, and it looks exactly like what is called Devil's Tower. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's a tree, a petrified wood, a big one. This now from CZ100. I used to work with a fellow who was Eastern European, and when he said it, because he had that Eastern European accent, it sounded kind of cool. Doesn't sound the same coming out of me. But this firearm has some kind of interesting features to it that are unique, and I can't think of another gun that kind of came factory standard right out of the box with basically the same setup. Now, I think what they had in mind with this, although I don't remember them promoting it as a personal defense, police gun or concealed carry gun or something like that, but a lot of the features to it really do lend itself to that. Before I get to some of those features, I want to point something out, that on this particular polymer framed gun, on the inside of the magazine well, you have here what you could compare to, on a 1911, the mainspring housing on the outside back of the grip frame. You have the mainspring housing that goes into a slot. Well, it's the same sort of a thing on the inside of the grip frame here, and it's polymer. And on the side that faces the magazine well, there are 3 block letters, GUN. Now, I've never been able to get any information from CZ as to why they stamped gun on polymer on the inside of the frame, but it does seem to me that this was introduced into the market about the time that there was a good deal of hysteria in the mainstream media about polymer frame guns, and just ridiculous comments about, oh, they're going to be able to get through all kinds of metal detectors and screening equipment isn't going to be able to pick it up, and it's going to cause mayhem and death and destruction, and on and on and on. So I can understand why they might put that on the inside of there. So if this went through whatever screening device, the individual sitting in front of the screen would see GUN, which tells me and should tell you that it shows up on the screening device screen that somebody's looking at, that the polymer frame stuff is it's obvious what it is. That's all I'm pointing out. The other thing, some cool stuff about this CZ100 polymer frame striker fire is you have, with the slide, it comes factory ported, and the top of the slide is cut out with 2 holes to vent. The rear adjustable sight for windage and elevation is steel, and it's also got an insert on the top of the slide here that is a steel insert that you can use if you needed to cock the gun, work the slide, chamber around because you're doing a mag change one-handed. You're injured. You're trying to work the gun with one hand. That's what this piece on the top of the slide is for. And it came from the factory just like that, which is something that's kind of cool. I haven't seen all of these features on one particular gun that I can recall. The other thing about this double action only polymer frame striker fire gun is the horrifically heavy New York trigger. Now, it seems to me I didn't get out the trigger pull gauge and weigh it recently, but it seems to me that it was about a 12-pound double action only pull on this thing. And that may be why I just don't shoot it real often. I like to have my gun set up, for the most part, across the board, 3.5-pound trigger pull. For me, that's real comfortable across the board. I can do real good target work with it, close up, long distance, whatever. And you know, that 12-pound New York trigger, you can get your Glock set up that way for, I guess NYPD has 12-pound triggers. To me, it's just horrifically heavy. But, you know, I can see why it's going to prevent an AD. You're nervous. You think you got to defend yourself and you stick your finger on the trigger before you should. Okay, maybe that'll prevent you from doing something you shouldn't do. I personally don't care for it. So I probably haven't shot it a lot because it was one of those, oh yeah, I'm going to do a spring kit and lighten this thing up, get it down at least half of that, and then I never did it. So anyway, I'm going to keep the gun just because I think it's cool. But I have 2 different loads here. The first one, a little bit lighter projectile, I've got 135 grain flat point plated bullet that I have loaded with 5.8 grains of bullseye. Mixed manufacturer brass, and I'm using a Winchester small pistol primer. Now I'm contrasting that with 150 grain jacketed hollow point. I believe it's the Sierra 150 grainer. I'm using the Sierra label on my MTM box that I put these in, but I didn't write Sierra on the label. But it's 5.8 grains of Winchester 244 wind clean. And the 244 wind clean is the propellant that Winchester is using. If you go buy a box of white box target ammunition, it says wind clean right on the box. Well, they're telling you that's the propellant that's being used for that. So I'm going to shoot, I don't know, I got 6 loaded up in a magazine here, and I'll load up 6 in the other magazine. And we're just going to, you know, I've got a target out there, I don't know, 25 yards, and just put some holes in that shoot and see target and see how well they group. But they're going to shoot differently because of the lighter bullets. Now, heavier bullets are kind of more of the standard fare for 40 Smith & Wesson. Typically, I personally will shoot 165s or 180s. I also like to shoot a lot of 10 millimeters, so the 180s have real good crossover from 40 Smith & Wesson to 10. So let's try some of this double action only striker fired CZ100 New York trigger. See if I can get it to group, you know, less than 12 inches at 25 yards. So I'm going to shoot that target off there to the left. It's got fewer holes in it. Yeah, that doesn't shoot real well at all. Well, not to my liking. So I'm going to set this down. Let's grab some of these 150 grain Sierras using the 244 Wind Clean. It seems to me that most of your 40 Smith & Wesson guns tend to like the heavier bullets a little bit better than the lighter. Although most of your handgun barrels, if memory serves me right, are going to be a 1 in 16 twist. And I think that's pretty well standard. You can get cut rifled barrels, and of course you can get custom barrels any way you like. But I think if with a 1 in 16, they shoot most fairly well, but 40 Smith & Wesson, it seems to me, I've had better luck with the heavier bullets. Or maybe it's just my own personal bias because I also like to shoot 10 millimeter, and I'd rather have a 500 count box of bullets or a 3,000 count box of bullets in 40/10 of 180 grain. That way I can load them for 40 Smith & Wesson. I can load it for 10 millimeter, and I have just fewer boxes of stuff on the shelf to choose from. But now here we're going to put these 150 grain jacketed hollow points with the 244 Wind Clean in there with 5.8 grains, the same as the other 5.8 of Bullseye, and see how these shoot. Yeah, it likes heavier bullets a lot better. So I think I'm just going to continue to have a little fun here. I better burn. I don't know, I probably got 60 or 70 more of those 135 grainers. I can just burn those up. Or, I've also got a Ruger, a PC, one of the older pistol cartridge carbines that likes, it seems to me, maybe those shoot the lighter bullets a little bit better than the handguns too. Of course, it's a carbine, so it's going to shoot differently than a handgun would anyway. But thanks for joining me for a beautiful afternoon of just casual target shooting, sitting on an old rotted log that looks like a rotted log, petrified wood, not yet turned into a rock. Happy trails.